Do you want to know some of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they're writing prompts for ChatGPT or other AI writing software like Google Bard? I've made some of these mistakes and figured out fixes. And in this video, I'm going to walk through exactly what they are and how you can use ChatGPT to write better prompts and get better results for your articles, blog posts, or content. Not considering the constraints of AI software is one mistake new writers or users of ChatGPT sometimes make. If you're going to use AI software to write your articles or even research them, then it's worthwhile considering what ChatGPT can and can't do. Firstly, at the time of recording this video, the dataset that ChatGPT refers to is limited to content published up until 2021. Now that may change at some future point, but it basically means much of the content you're going to get could be out of date, so you're going to need to fact check it. There is a workaround. You can of course use other AI tools like Google Bard, which can provide real-time or the latest information in its AI content. Elsewhere on the channel, I do compare Google Bard to ChatGPT for writing, so check out those videos. ChatGPT also has some constraints about the types of content that you can work on. So it will impose restrictions if the content is going to be illegal, if it involves violence or harm, if it's adult content, sensitive information, hate speech, or misinformation. Now you may find some workarounds for these on Twitter, but to be honest, that's not really helpful for most writers who want to use AI tools ethically. ChatGPT also has capacity issues. If you're using the free version, chances are you'll find it stops prompting regularly and often. So, if you want to get the most value from ChatGPT, you're best off using the latest model and paying the $20 per month subscription. And even then, you will sometimes find that it will run out of memory, much like a computer, and you'll often have to press please continue or ask it to regenerate a response or regenerate an output based on a more specific prompt that you're going to give it. Sometimes you'll also need to put back in the information and ask ChatGPT to recomplete said task. Using generic prompts to write articles is one mistake new writers make when they sometimes use ChatGPT. This was a mistake that I made when I first started using AI software. I used prompts like, write me an article about running a marathon. And ChatGPT produced an article that was several hundred words in length. The content was a little bit generic, and it wasn't really differentiated from anything else online. And it was also part article, part outline. To avoid this particular mistake, it's far better to use ChatGPT to create what's called a topical map. So a topical map basically outlines all of the content that you should cover about a specific topic. And it's really helpful if you're running a website or a content site about, let's say, marathon running or whatever your particular niche or interest is. So I started by giving ChatGPT this prompt. I'm writing a series of articles about running a marathon. Prepare me a topical map and put the results in a table. Now ChatGPT produced a list of topics on the left-hand side that I could write articles about, and also provided me with a summary of what each one of these articles should cover. This is excellent for idea iteration, and it gives me more specific content to focus on. Of course, if I'm using ChatGPT to write, chances are I want the articles to rank in Google search so I can get some traffic and start earning money from advertising or from the articles in question. So I went ahead and asked ChatGPT to generate some potential SEO keywords for each one of these topics and add it to the table in question. And ChatGPT produced 2 to 3 keywords for each one of these topics. Now all I need to do is plug these keywords into my keyword tool, Ahrefs or SEMrush, or whatever I'm using, see how competitive they are, and also see what the search volume is like. Now I have a list of content that I can write about, and I also have a list of keywords that I can ensure these articles include, so they start to rank in Google search results. That's much more useful than a generic prompt like, write me an article. Not empathizing with readers is a mistake that new writers can make. And you can easily make this mistake with ChatGPT by using a generic prompt or by just relying on an outline that it produces. To avoid this particular mistake, I recommend using this particular prompt. First up, you're going to consider the hopes, dreams, fears, and aspirations of your readers. Now, you could find these out by talking to them, by surveying them, or by getting on a call with them on Zoom. Or you could ask ChatGPT to help with a prompt like this one. Prepare me a list of the hopes, dreams, fears, and aspirations of somebody training for their first marathon, or whatever the topic you're interested in is. And we're going to ask ChatGPT to put the results in a table so it's easy to reference. And now ChatGPT has produced lots of emotional language that would help me with my introduction and would help me insert some emotions into the article so it's not just bland, boring, and generic content. Ask anybody who's training for a marathon and they'll tell you they often worry about injuries. And this is actually something that ChatGPT has recognized. It flagged this as a hope. I really hope my body holds up and I don't get any nasty injuries. So I could write an article about training for a marathon and how to avoid becoming injured, but I could use this kind of emotional, vivid language in the introduction to capture the attention of readers. Similarly, here's another good emotionally charged aspiration that could help with my conclusion. I want to make running part of my life and not just a hobby. So I could write a conclusion about what to do when you finish training for a marathon and what the next steps should be. In other words, you're not just a marathon runner, you're somebody who includes running as part of their daily life. Think of these emotionally charged sentences as types of writing prompts which will help you expand on that initial first draft of your article which AI has produced. They also represent a good opportunity for you to insert your personal impressions and experiences into the article in question. Publishing content ChatGPT produces as is a mistake that new users or writers can make. If we go over to Google Search Central, we'll see that the team at Google say using or publishing AI content is not against their guidelines. And the use of AI software is not considered spam. However, you're still potentially taking a big risk with your site. Far better to take that AI content and run it through an AI detector. To show you an example, I asked ChatGPT to write me an introduction to an article about what it's like to achieve a personal best at a marathon. Now, the introduction was reasonably good, maybe a little bit cliched, but there was some emotional language and imagery which could potentially resonate with readers. But let's say I didn't bother editing this and I just published it as is on my site. So I went back over to ChatGPT and I asked it to rewrite that introduction so it's more personal, sounds like it was written by a human, and uses sentence variation. And ChatGPT has produced a similar introduction that has long and short sentences and that asks questions directly to readers. Think about it, full stop. Beating your own record, that's like winning a grueling battle against yourself, isn't it? So I went ahead and I took this introduction and I pasted it into originality.ai and it came up as 98% original. So I'd feel more confident about using this on my site. That said, I would still like to insert some personal impressions into this introduction based on my experiences running a marathon. But you can see it's a lot more usable than that original output from ChatGPT. Not leveraging your expertise, authoritativeness, and trust is another mistake that you could potentially make if you're using ChatGPT or other AI writing software a lot. If we go back over to Google Search Central, we can see that it rewards content or blog posts or articles that demonstrate qualities of what it describes as earned expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. In other words, if you're going to produce a lot of articles with AI, make sure that these articles are checked by a human, edited, and accredited. And also consider different ways that you can add social proof and trustworthiness to your site. So as an example, this is the About page on my site Become a Writer Today. And you can see here that I have bio and contact information for all of the writers and editors. And I also link through to the different articles and websites that they have written for. And if you click through to any of the articles on the site, you will see that each one of these is attributed to these authors. Now granted, I have not used ChatGPT to write articles extensively for this particular website. However, if I were to start using ChatGPT more as start of my publishing workflow, I would still make sure that an article produced by AI has been fact-checked or edited by one of these writers before pressing publish. Using short, generic prompts is another mistake that's easy to make when trying out ChatGPT or other AI tools. and I could put in a prompt like how to train for a marathon. And sure, I'll get some useful results from ChatGPT. But instead, it's better to give ChatGPT much more specific instructions about the types of topics and information you want it to cover. This will dramatically improve the output. So instead of saying I'm training for a marathon, I could tell ChatGPT that I'm a health and fitness writer and I'm writing an article for beginners, i.e. my target audience, who want to race the New York City Marathon, i.e. something much more specific. Now I get a more relevant headline and more relevant action points for the article in question. I'd even take that one step further by emphasizing key themes or topics that I'd like ChatGPT to cover in the article draft. So for example, I could tell ChatGPT that I'd like it to provide training tips and a plan alongside some of the information previously provided. It can take some prompting and reprompting to elicit the right information from ChatGPT, and it's a little bit time consuming. Thankfully, you can use a free tool that will save you an awful lot of time. So using Prompt Perfect, you can put in your original prompt into this tool and it will expand and elaborate on it so you get better information from ChatGPT. So for example, I put in this prompt: I'm a health and fitness writer, writing an article for beginners who want to race the New York City Marathon. And Prompt Perfect has expanded this into several different paragraphs that explains key themes and topics that the article should cover. It even explains how the optimized prompt is an improvement over the original prompt because it provides specific guidelines for writers and also identifies the target audience as well as key themes and topics that the output should cover. So I went ahead and pasted this into ChatGPT, and as you can see, the results are longer, more detailed and more specific. The output even includes references. Now I still want to go and fact check these references and the information in the output, but as you can see, the quality is much better than when I used a bland, boring, generic prompt. Expecting the latest, factually correct information is a mistake that you can easily make if you're using ChatGPT a lot as part of your research, writing or publishing workflow. As an example, I gave ChatGPT a fairly generic prompt: write me a blog post about the best running shoes for a marathon. And even taking into account the fact that ChatGPT is limited to data up until 2021, the results were still a little bit generic and were missing some well-known running shoes and brands from 2021. So whatever output you get from ChatGPT, take a few moments to ensure that it's all factually correct, because AI can often be confidently wrong. As part of my editing workflow, I often like to source links and citations that I can include in the article in question. Now you can leverage ChatGPT with some plugins to do it. However, there is another AI tool which could save you even more time, and it's built on top of ChatGPT. The tool in question is called Koala. Elsewhere in the channel, I review Koala in detail, but basically it can generate thousands of words once you take out a premium subscription. Now it has some key differences compared to ChatGPT. So firstly, it can leverage data after 2021, in other words, the latest information. And secondly, it can include links and external sources. So this can save you a good bit of time during the research and editing process. So I'd actually recommend using this tool if you're serious about using AI as part of your writing workflow. When you're generating articles inside of Koala, the prompts work pretty similar to ChatGPT. So you simply select your article type, put in your target keyword, so think of those keywords that we researched earlier on in the video, select your preferred tone of voice and country and point of view. Then you're going to click Use Real-Time Search Results. And you can even ask ChatGPT or Koala, because Koala is built on top of ChatGPT, to leverage Google Scholar if you're serious about getting some good external sources and citations for the article in question. Of course, you can do all of this manually with an output from ChatGPT. The idea here is that you're ensuring your article is trustworthy and credible for readers. Those are just 7 mistakes that new users or writers of ChatGPT can make. Which ones have I overlooked? Let me know in the comment section below. Oh, and if you'd like to watch more videos about using AI software to write, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel.